In 2003, a scientific journal published a finding that captured the imagination of the entire world. A finding so extraordinary that over the next 20 years, it was cited in thousands of articles, documentaries, textbooks, and dinner table conversations across the planet. The finding was this: 8% of all men across a vast region of Central Asia share the same genetic lineage, around 16 million men alive at the time, and scientists proposed that all of them descended from a single man, Genghis Khan. For 20 years, that finding was presented as one of genetics and #39 great achievements, proof that history and #39's most brutal medieval conqueror had left an unprecedented genetic mark on humanity. In 2026, new ancient dinar analysis extracted from the tombs of likely direct descendants of Genghis Khan in Kazakhstan reached an uncomfortable conclusion. The lineage probably wasn't an #39, T Genghis Khan and #39s. And the real man behind those 16 million descendants may have lived 1,000 years before the Mongol Empire ever existed. Act 1. The conqueror who changed the world. To understand why this finding mattered so much, you first have to understand the man it was attributed to. Genghis Khan was born around 1162 on the Mongolian steppe with the name Temujin. He was the son of a minor clan chief, captured and killed by a rival tribe when Temujin was a child. His mother raised the children alone, in extreme poverty. From that unlikely origin, Temujin built the largest contiguous land empire in human history. By 1206, he had unified all the nomadic tribes of Mongolia under his command. Over the next 20 years, his armies conquered China, Central Asia, Persia, and reached the gates of Eastern Europe. At his death in 1227, the Mongol Empire covered 12 million square kilometres, nearly a fifth of the planet and #39's entire landmass. His campaigns were extraordinarily violent. Estimates from modern historians suggest Mongol wars caused the deaths of between 20 and 40 million people, a proportion of the world population at the time comparable to the greatest demographic catastrophes in history. Entire cities were razed. Civilizations that had flourished for centuries vanished in a matter of weeks. But Genghis Khan also left a very different kind of legacy. According to historical sources, he had 4 sons with his principal wife, and many more with an indeterminate number of concubines and women captured during the conquests. His eldest son, Jochi, had 40 sons of his own. His grandson Guyuk had 22 legitimate sons, and is said to have added 30 virgins to his harem each year. Generation after generation, Genghis Khan, 39, male descendants held positions of power across the empire, with privileged access to women and resources. Statistically, it was the perfect combination to spread a genetic lineage at massive scale. Act 2. The study that shook genetics in the early 2000s. A team of geneticists at the University of Oxford, led by Chris Tyler Smith, had spent years studying the Y-chromosomes of male populations across Asia. The Y-chromosome passes from father to son with almost no alteration, generation after generation. It in #39's, like a genetic surname, it allows paternal lineages to be traced across centuries. They analysed the Y-chromosomes of 2,123 men from 16 different populations, from China to Uzbekistan. What they found left them speechless. There was a specific lineage known as C3, or the star cluster that appeared in 8% of all the men analysed across that region. And it appeared with a distribution that couldn't and #39. To be random, it was more frequent in places where the Mongol Empire had had the greatest presence, and less frequent the further you got from the conquest routes. The Y chromosome of a single individual has spread rapidly and is now found in approximately 16 million men, NIS 0.5% of the world total. Zerjal et al., AGHG 2003. The geographic distribution. The time concentration, the lineage had begun to expand about 1,000 years ago, right when the Mongol Empire was beginning. And the speed of expansion, so fast it couldn't and #39 be the result of natural evolution, there had to be a social cause. The study in #39's authors proposed the most obvious one, that the lineage belonged to Genghis Khan, or a very close male relative, and had spread because his male descendants governed the entire Mongol Empire for generations, with unlimited access to women. The study was published, news outlets picked it up, and the 16 million descendants of Genghis Khan finding became one of the most cited scientific facts of the 21st century. Act 3, the problem no one wanted to see, but there was a problem that the study in #39's own authors had flagged from the beginning, even though press headlines systematically ignored it. No one had Genghis Khan and #39's DNA. His tomb has never been found. It is one of the great mysteries of medieval archaeology. The conqueror himself reportedly asked, according to some sources, that his burial place remains secret forever, and his successors honoured that request with an effectiveness that has resisted 800 years of searching. In 2015, Tyler Smith himself, the original study and #39's author, was direct about it when asked, and quote, "When we did it, we were using pretty indirect lines of reasoning. It was fascinating, but we didn't and #39 have direct proof." And it wasn't an #39 to proof that the lineage belonged to Genghis Khan. It was a reasoned statistical inference, the best available at the time, but an inference, not a certainty. And inferences in science have an expiry date. In 2017, a team of Chinese researchers published an analysis questioning the link. They argued that the CMT17 lineage to which the star cluster belonged was so broad and genetically diverse that it likely traced its roots to ordinary Mongol warriors, not the imperial line. A genetic group of millions of people couldn't at #39 have formed in a single generation. It had to go much further back. There was the real technical problem. The C3 lineage wasn't at #39 a single, precise haplogroup. It was an enormous genetic family with many distinct sub-branches. Identifying one member of that family as Genghis Khan and 39's lineage was like saying all men with the surname Smith were close relatives of one another. The surname is the same, the family tree not necessarily. To know which specific sub-branch Genghis Khan carried, they needed something they didn't #39 have, his own DNA. Act 4, the ancient DNA that dismantled it in 2026. A team of researchers led by Akan Askapuli published a study in PNAS that changed the rules of the game. They had analysed the ancient DNA of 4 individuals, 3 men and 1 woman, buried in mausoleums in Kazakhstan. They were, according to local folklore and historical records, high-ranking members of the Golden Horde, the northwestern branch of the Mongol Empire, governed by Jochi, Genghis Khan #39's eldest son, and his successors. If any available DNA could get as close to Genghis Khan #39's, it was this. The DNA from the 3 men revealed that they did belong to the C3 family, the same lineage from the 2003 study, and that all 3 were paternally related to each other, exactly what one would expect from members of the Mongol imperial family. Up to that point, everything seemed to confirm the original hypothesis. But then came the detail that changed everything. The Golden Horde elites did not carry the dominant variant of the C3 lineage, the one shared by the supposed 16 million descendants of Genghis Khan. They carried an extremely rare sub-branch, a variant so infrequent it practically doesn't #39 to exist in modern populations. What that means for the most famous finding in popular genetics is devastating if the likely direct descendants of Genghis Khan carry the rare variant, and the 16 million men carry the common variant, then those 16 million men probably do not descend from Genghis Khan. This crucial finding effectively severs the link between the Mongol Emperor and his reported massive modern genetic footprint. The massive lineage of the 16 million probably belongs to a completely different patriarch, someone who lived perhaps 2,000 years ago, 1,000 years before the Mongol Empire existed. Someone whose name, in all likelihood, we will never know. And this finding connects to something science had already flagged in 2015. Genghis Khan wasn't #39, the only man to have left millions of genetic descendants. A University of Leicester study identified 11 Y-chromosome lineages in Asia that were statistically as massive as the one attributed to Genghis Khan. 11 different men who at some point between 2100 BCE and 700 C had disseminated their lineage in an extraordinary way. Only one of those 11 could be identified, Jiokanga, the grandfather of the founder of China and #39's Qing dynasty, whose male descendants governed for decades and whose lineage can be traced in around 1.5 million men in modern northern China. The other 10 remain unknown. 10 anonymous patriarchs who, between them, have more traceable genetic descendants than any known named historical figure. The tomb no one has found the most obvious question in the whole of this story is also the oldest one. Where is Genghis Khan and 39's tomb? 8 centuries of searching, expeditions, ground surveys, and now satellite scanning have found no answer. According to some historical sources, his soldiers massacred everyone who had participated in his burial, so no one could reveal the location. And then those soldiers were eliminated as well. Mongol tradition wanted the great Khan to rest in peace, his grave undisturbed. It worked. Without the tomb, there is no DNA. Without the DNA, the most famous finding of 21st century popular genetics, still cannot be definitively confirmed or refuted. What we do know, thanks to the 2026 study, is that the lineage attributed to Genghis Khan for 20 years probably belongs to someone else. Someone equally extraordinary in terms of genetic impact, but completely anonymous to history. And that, in a way, is the most fascinating part of the whole case. Somewhere in history, perhaps 2,000 years ago, a man who will never have a name in any book left a genetic footprint so massive that for decades we attributed it to the most famous conqueror of the medieval world. That anonymous man has more identifiable descendants today than Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great, and any other known historical figure combined. And we know absolutely nothing about him. Not his name, not his tribe, not what he did to allow his lineage to spread that way. We only know he lived, and that his blood is still flowing, without anyone knowing it, in millions of men walking the streets of Central Asia today. Every bloodline tells the truth, even when we don't and #39, know who it belongs to.